listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We can be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring the magic touch. The first instinct of any mother when approached by her child with a boo-boo is to hold it between her hands. A mother's healing touch is not a myth, but rather the current created when a positive and a negative pole circle around neutrality. This concept is the basis behind the production of power found in all electrical generators. There's always electromagnetic current running through the human body. As a rule, the left hand carries a negative charge while the right is positive. Our heart is the neutral pole around which these currents dance. The Earth has a positive or north pole, a negative or south pole, and a neutral core. As our planet spins on her axis, she generates an electromagnetic field that draws in from the north and exits the south, creating a toroidal field. The Earth's toroidal field interacts with that of the Sun and other planets, drawing heavenly energy into the Earth. This interaction maintains a state of balance between the Earth and the universe at large. Our bodies have the same electromagnetic configuration as the Earth. Any place the electromagnetic field of the Earth and the human body intersect, we have access to the power generated by the Earth, and through her, that of the universe. We're present in the moment, and coming from heart, we can channel universal energy through the flow already present in our bodies, putting healing magic at our hands. The power is accessed through Earth connection and intent. When a mother sees her child in pain, she immediately opens her heart and instinctively draws on what she can to alleviate the child's suffering. Through her intent, she unconsciously uses her natural earth connection to access balanced, healing current that passes through her hands and to her child. A trained individual can consciously draw on this natural occurring power to restore balance and bring healing through their hands. Early in my shamanic training, my Lakota teacher demonstrated the technique. I bring heaven and earth together in my heart and let them pass from my right hand to my left. I put the sick part between my hands, and the current passes through and heals it, he shared. His simple account granted me the answer to a great mystery, the laying on of hands. I've successfully used the technique to transmute rattlesnake venom, ease pain, stop bleeding, reduce swelling, and accelerate the healing of sprains and broken bones. When a bird runs into a window and knocks itself silly, I can pick it up and restore it. Often the little fellow, apparently not seeing me as a threat, will sit in my open palm long after it's recovered, seeming to bask in the energy. These things may seem fanciful, but many have witnessed me do them, and I've come to view it as natural as breathing. It is as natural as breathing. It's our birthright. Yet the current is only as powerful as the clarity of the channel. After all, the light's only as clear as the window through which it shines. In order to wield natural gift, we must return to our true nature. This requires discipline and processing on all 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. If we're bogged down with fake food, jammed emotions, negative thought forms, and are out of touch with our spiritual aspect of our lives, we cannot hope to channel the healing frequency available to us. Yet, be of good heart. Through prayer, intent, and numerous easily learned techniques, we can channel the very energy into our bodies and let the process begin. Our guest this hour is Joe Wiyaka. He's a police officer for 20 years. He's practiced martial arts since 1987. His Kung Fu Tai Chi teacher taught him Reiki in 2009, and Joe started a professional practice that year. His use of Reiki has allowed him to discover many healing abilities and discover how emotions are the source of most chronic disease. Joe's also discovered his ability to see and speak with spirit and has begun paranormal investigation as a psychic medium, crossing over trapped spirits and ridding homes and businesses of harmful entities. When we return from this short break, I'll introduce Joe, and together we'll explore the magic and the science of hands-on healing, as well as maybe a few things that go bump in the night. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
Welcome back. This is the Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Joe Widget, a Reiki practitioner, paranormal investigator, and psychic medium. His website, www.reikichoice.com. Joe, thank you so much for joining us on the Science of Magic.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
We should have some fun today. It says in your bio that you practice Kung Fu, Tai Chi, and Reiki, and they all work with energy, and that looks like a pretty magical progression to me. Would you mind sharing how you use these forms to tap into the healing energy of your clients?
I studied martial arts since 1987, a number of different styles with a number of different teachers, and I wound up several years ago, about 20 years ago, studying pressure point techniques with George Dillman and his Dillman Karate Institute. Mm-hmm. So basically, the science behind that is there are meridians running through the body, and there are points along those meridians where one can enter new information into the system. They do the same thing with acupuncture. They're the same points. Acupressure is the same way, only by looking at the old-fashioned katas from some of the martial arts styles, they map out where the body is moving to and what points to hit to create an effect that would make the attacker want to stop fighting you. So, you would connect the dots on the person, for lack of a better term, and it would create an effect where the person would either crouch down or he would bend his knees or he would go unconscious or something like that. And in an effort to want to be better at that aspect, I got into Tai Chi and Qigong, and after learning Reiki, I decided that I'd rather use the energies to heal people than to hurt people. So I'm on a path for healing people and trying to put them back in balance.
That's amazing because it's those points. It sounds like what you're doing is shorting people out in the martial arts form, but you could use it in exactly the reverse to bring energy where it's lacking when you're doing healing work. Is that what's going on?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's just like you explained in your intro and in the teachings that you had in your first segment. It's about moving the energy with the hands, and it's about creating an energetic balance where energy can flow through the practitioner and into the recipient and create a balance of energy in that person where healing can then start to take place for that person.
What can you tell us about focus and conscious intent as it relates to moving this energy?
Oftentimes, and almost every Reiki session that I do, whenever I bring the client back to the room and we start getting into the session, one of the first things that I ask is, what is the intention today? Where do we want to put our attention? What are we wanting to focus on today? And even though Reiki energy is defined as a divine, intelligent life force, it doesn't need to be told where to go. You don't have to concentrate on it. You don't have to move it or mold it or shape it. I feel that it does help with practitioners, and I teach this in my classes, to help direct where you want the energy to focus on. And even in some cases, if somebody comes in and they say, well, I have a bad back, or I have my neck hurts, or I have a headache, or I'm experiencing pain in my knee, where that physical pain is actually manifesting is normally not the real source of the illness or the disease or the discomfort. There may be an emotional cause, which is most likely the case in a lot of cases, or it may be the body is seeking to put itself out of alignment in order to achieve balance. And so I think if you direct the mind to say, okay, we're going to work on this knee, well, whatever the cause is for that knee to hurt, that's where Reiki's going to go for the cause and try to create balance in that situation. So that way the knee, the symptoms that are actually being created or manifested, will then alleviate themselves once the cause has been removed.
Would you mind going a bit into the body going out of alignment to maintain balance? That seems diametrically opposed. What are you talking about there?
Okay. I see a lot of times whenever clients will come in and they will have a, like say they have neck pain. Well, oftentimes if there's an injury at the lower back, the body will actually seek to correct itself in order to prevent itself from tipping over or becoming imbalanced or leaning one direction or the other. It will seek to rearrange the body's physical structure in order to create a situation where balance is achieved at the cost of alignment. So oftentimes if someone says they have low back pain, I can usually, by using my abilities, detect that it might not be the lower back as the cause of it. It may be that there's tension in the neck or there's stress in the neck that's causing the muscles to tighten up and it's pulling things out of alignment in the neck. Well, in order to keep the neck from either jutting forward or leaning to one side or another, or becoming out of alignment in that situation, the body will inherently cause the lower back to shift to create balance, so that way the body is not constantly trying to tip over, and that happens at the cost of alignment. So if the muscles around the physical frame structure, the skeleton, are constantly trying to pull the body into a position of balance, even though that balance may be at the cost of alignment, you're going to have a situation where now you have 2 points of error, 2 points of imbalance that have to be addressed in order to create a situation of healing.
Got it. So it's a compensatory thing. So the presenting illness may be where the compensation is happening rather than where the actual injury is. And then Reiki will naturally go to the injury versus the compensation, even if you don't know what it is. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I had a client come to me, and he was complaining about his left knee hurting all the time, and he had a lot of problems with his left knee. And I looked at him, and I said, well, it's because your hip is out of alignment. And his spine was actually, it looked like an S, because it shifted side to side from his neck to his lower back. Well, he had been in a car accident that nearly killed him about 25 years prior. And during that time, with his hip being out of alignment, it caused him to stand on one side more than the other. And that extra weight, that extra pressure on his knee caused knee pain, even though it was the hip that was causing him to stand in a position of a lack of alignment in order to achieve balance. Otherwise, he would have leaned to one side, or he constantly would have been, leaning forward or to the side, or some other way of compensating for that. So what his body did on its own was it taught him to stand more on one leg. So if you looked at him, took a picture of him standing in front of you, his foot would be nearly in the center of his pelvis, and his right foot would be out to the side, as opposed to having both feet underneath his hips where they belong. So his body was compensating for an injury, and it caused pain in an unrelated location.
Wow, that's fascinating. We're such complex beings, aren't we? Joe, what effect does tapping into and channeling healing energy have on you as the practitioner?
Say it again?
What effect does tapping into and channeling healing energy have on you as personally as a practitioner?
I've always said, and I teach in my classes, that if you're giving Reiki, you're getting Reiki. And the concept is, the energy is flowing through the practitioner. He connects to the source of energy. He connects to that divine source, and however he identifies with it. And he allows that force, that life force, that energy to travel through him to get to the client. And in the same concept that the inside of the garden hose always gets wet, we as the carriers and the instruments, the funnels of that instrument, that energy, we will always get a little bit of it as well. And so the more I give Reiki, the better I feel. If I have a week where I have a lot of clients and I'm really helping a lot of people, I will feel better at the end of the week because I'm getting all that energy all the time, and I'm using it to help others. On those weeks where I simply don't have as many clients, I don't get that flow as often, and so therefore I just don't feel as peppy or as energetic as I normally would.
So it's almost like being in love. If you're in love, you let love through you, and therefore you're full of love, and you feel energized. It's kind of like that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Hey, would you mind defining Reiki?
Reiki is a healing modality based on the gentle touch techniques and the laying on of hands that is Japanese in nature, but it's based on the inherent qualities and abilities that humankind has to affect another human being for the positive by laying the hands on that person. It has been called a number of names all over the world, and when Mikao Usui, who actually gave this particular form of healing the name Reiki, it means Rei and Ki. Ki is the energy. It's that life force. It is George Lucas described it as the force. It's that energy between things. It's the energy that surrounds things and penetrates things. And Rei is a Japanese word which means divine or intelligent or universal. And so he gave this modality the name Reiki, which means a universal, divinely guided healing energy of life force energy. Now, had he been, South American, or had he been Russian or any other nationality, it probably would have had a different name. But the fact that he studied in Tibet, and he studied in Nepal and India and China, and discovered these hands-on healing techniques. And when he went back to Japan and did his meditations to try to formulate how this works, the name Reiki came to him. But it really is, it's an inherent, natural, innate ability that humans have to affect another person for the purposes of healing just by laying the hands on. And they've done scientific and medical studies in hospitals where they have proven that those people in the hospital who were touched and touched for a prolonged period of time, say 3 to 5 minutes, by the nurse in a gentle and loving way, just putting a hand on the patient's hand or putting a hand on the patient's shoulder, those persons who had that touch left the hospital sooner than the patients whose nurse has only touched them clinically. Come in and change out the pan, change out the IV, take the temperature, and walk out the door. So our ability to touch other people it's a part of how we are built and who we are and how we function in this world. And it really does have a positive, healing, loving effect on other people.
That's amazing. We're going to have to take a little break, but when we come back, we're going to continue the discussion on Reiki. It's a fascinating subject. We'll return to our discussion after this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. You want to hear more? Previous broadcasts of innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. Visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is Joe Widget. a Reiki practitioner, paranormal investigator, and psychic medium. His website is www.reikichoice.com. Joe, we were talking about Reiki, go figure, and would you mind sharing with our listeners, how does it work exactly?
Reiki works by adding energy, pure raw life force energy, to the various positions on the body that are closest to the chakras, where emotional, physical, organic, and glandular activity all meet and combine. So there are points along the body that you would lay your hands on another person if they come in for a session. And, one enters a semi-meditative state and allows that energy to flow through him or her into the person on the table. And in Reiki, we always say it's the person on the table who's the healer. The person who's actually, standing above the table or sitting beside the table, he's just a facilitator. He's creating the environment for which those things can happen. And so I always say, if somebody's coming in and they're needing a session, they're the ones doing the healing. Their subconscious mind already has everything it needs to do the healing. It just needs the conscious mind to be quiet and get out of the way so it can do it. And so the practitioner will create the environment, whether it's, with low lighting and soft music and, incense and whatever, aromatherapy, whatever it takes to get that conscious mind to slow down and to stop running at 100 miles an hour and let the subconscious mind take over for just a little bit and use all this extra energy that it's receiving in order to heal the body in the places it already knows it needs healing.
As you're speaking, it reminds me, for a while I was working with wolves that had been hurt, and they were, in recovery, and I'd use hands-on healing with them, and those animals would go into a trance, and you could feel them pulling the energy, but they just kind of like go unconscious. So that's a beautiful example of exactly what you're talking about, isn't it?
Absolutely. I actually had a client who had a dog that apparently had a stroke in its spinal column, and it just one day suddenly became paralyzed from about the mid-spine on down, and the back legs just stopped working. And she had been a client of mine several times, and she said, "Hey, would you come out and work on my dog?" So I drove out to her house several times and worked on the dog, and she had her dog in a physical therapy, and they had it on it was a tank of water with a treadmill in it. And it was teaching the dog how to feel its legs again and actually how to step and move its feet, because the treadmill's still moving, but the water takes the weight off the legs. And her physical therapist said that they've never seen a dog recover so quickly. And
Wow.
She did the exact same thing. She would lay on the floor, and I would lay there beside her and put my hands on her, and I could just feel so much energy just going into this dog, and it was incredible. And she laid there and took it for the entire hour. So it was really fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch. We could sure learn a lot from the way they heal themselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, if you watch a dog whenever they get sick, they will go off to a corner and just lay down by themselves and not eat for a couple of days until their body, needs to heal itself. And I think sometimes humans need to learn a little bit more about that. We tend to say, "Oh, well, I'm sick. I know I don't feel well, and I'm probably running a fever, but I got to get to work." And we don't take the time it takes sometimes just to lay on the couch for a couple of days, turn the TV off, and just sit down there and just not do anything but heal.
So by redirecting our body's energy outward to continue working in this and that, it slows our healing process? Is that what you're indicating?
Absolutely. Sometimes even the process of digesting food or doing any other natural functions like that can take away from the healing process inside the body. Which is why I said, like, dogs will just go off to a corner by themselves, and cats will go off to a corner by themselves and just curl up in a ball and just not interact with anybody for several days, even if it costs them food, because the idea of digesting food takes energy away from the internal healing processes that are going on. And whenever we're ignoring our illnesses or suppressing them or taking, things like Tylenol or other NSAIDs in order to suppress or mask some of those symptoms that are telling us that something is wrong and we need to take time out of our lives for a moment, we're only exacerbating those illnesses and injuries that we should be taking time out to help correct.
That makes perfect sense to me. Can you practice Reiki long distance?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the things that you learn in the second of the Reiki classes. There's a Reiki 1 and a Reiki 2, and the Reiki 2 allows you to send this over distance, and I have done this a number of times. Most recently, I had a client that called me from Indianapolis, and he says, I'm having a health crisis right now. My left leg has severe edema from the hip on down, and it's swollen up about twice its size, and I don't know what to do. And I said, well, what you need to do is hang up the phone and go sit on the couch for an hour, and I'll call you back in 60 minutes. And so I just went into my room, and I shut everything down, and I concentrated only on draining out that leg. And I called him back in an hour, and I said, okay, tell me how you feel. And his words were, I felt everything you did. I felt what felt just like heat and warmth and vibration and just waves of energy just flowing through the leg. And he said, it's already starting to shrink. And the very next day, it was back down almost to normal again.
Do you use a surrogate method? I know in shamanic practices, sometimes if we're working long distance, particularly if we're doing something a little more difficult like an extraction or a depossession, we will take an article and use it to represent our client in order to focus. Do you do that, or you just go distance with your mind?
I usually go distance with my mind, but on some occasions, I had a client of mine who had one of her toes amputated.
Ouch.
And she was in extreme pain, and she was getting an infection, and the infection was getting worse. And so she called me up and said, look, I can't make it down there because I can't get out of the house. Can you help me out? And so I grabbed one of my kids' teddy bears, and I said, come on, kids, let's go in the other room. We're going to fix somebody's toe. And they're all Reiki 2s. I've trained all of them. And by the way, children pick it up like crazy. Children are amazing at Reiki because they're not as emotionally screwed up as us adults are. And so we went into the other room, and I put the teddy bear down on the bed, and I said, okay, look, we're going to concentrate on this toe, and we're going to talk about, or concentrate on, let's get rid of the infection, and let's cause some healing. And so me and my 3 kids, we were all just sitting there on the bed and working through this teddy bear, and it created a very positive effect.
Wow, that's, it's just magic. We have magic in our hands, don't we? Yeah.
Oh, we are magic. And anyone who wants to refute that is just missing out on the bigger picture and losing so much life. Because we really are magic, just the very nature. Just even in our physical bodies, we are magic. But when you add our animate spirit behind that and who we really are and what we really represent in the universe, we truly are something magical. And I think if you lose sight of that, you're missing a big part of life, because we're so much more than just going to work and going home and watching TV and paying your bills.
Beautifully stated, Joe. How can you tell if Reiki is the best course of action, or if a person needs a doctor?
Well, I've always said in my classes, and every Reiki book will tell you, I'm not a medical doctor, and I'm not allowed to tell a person, stop taking your meds, because Reiki can help that. But, we always teach and we always support that Reiki can complement any other treatment that you're doing. Now, I've worked with cancer patients who are going through chemo and radiation, and Reiki can help to magnify the positive effects of those drugs with minimal side effects. I've had people say they don't get the nausea or the mouth sores or the tiredness and some of the things that normally go on with chemo and radiation. I've worked with people who have severe depression, and they say, yeah, they were getting side effects from their depression medication, and sometimes the depression medication wasn't correcting all the problems that they had, but with the Reiki, it was helping to enhance the medicine and reduce the amount of side effects. So Reiki is more of a complementary and not a replacement therapy.
Oh, I like the way you said that, because isn't it time that we started working together on this stuff,
Oh, absolutely. And, and I've
had
had clients that have eventually gone off their depression medication, and I've got several clients of mine who are now medication-free, who were dependent on it every day to, keep from having suicidal thoughts, or, just keep going to work.
Right.
And by working with them, I was able to get them off those medications. And that was their choice and their doctor's choice and not mine. But
that's wonderful. We're going to have to take another break here. We will return after the flip side of this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous episode broadcasts on www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. Our website is www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our special guest this hour is Joe Wiyaka. He's a Reiki practitioner, paranormal investigator, and psychic medium. Joe's website is www.reikichoice.com. And Joe, I understand that people can find long-distance treatment as well as classes through your website. Is that correct?
I don't do long-distance classes, but I can do long-distance treatments. Yes, absolutely.
And then you are holding classes if people want to come study with you?
Absolutely. Right here in Evansville, Indiana, I do classes on Reiki about 2 to 3 times a year. And I hold other classes where I talk about energy and talk about, quantum physics and how, basically the universe is built and how we can better use the universe and our spirit in order to enhance and improve our lives. And so I teach a number of different classes on energy and things like that too.
Oh, we got to do this more often, sir. We're on the same page.
Oh,
Hey, did you
absolutely.
find?
Everything is all about quantum physics. It's about the energy and it's about life force. And if you can tap into that and you know how to focus it and set your intentions, your life will come together a lot more positively and it will go forward a lot more enjoyably.
Beautiful. Did you find that the process of channeling energy through your body activated seemingly unrelated gifts?
Oh, absolutely. The more that I was tuning into Reiki, especially at the very beginning of my practice, I noticed that while I was in that space, that headspace, I was starting to see pictures and starting to see visions, and some of the pictures would move like television. And I began to ask, what is this I'm looking at? What is this I'm seeing? And sometimes I would mention those things to my client at the end of the session and say, hey, I saw, a long driveway with a split rail fence, and there was a pasture, and I saw a horse. And they would say, yeah, that was my childhood home. And these kinds of things started to come together a lot more often. And I realized that, okay, I have an ability to see things that I normally wouldn't see. And it reminded me that even as a child, I was able to do some of those things. I just didn't realize I was doing it. And by being in the flow of Reiki, I have come to learn that, yeah, I can actually talk to spirit. I have had conversations with crossed over souls. I just came from Waverly Hills over an overnight stay last night and talked to some spirits there. And I've had past relatives who have passed, who have come into my Reiki room while I'm working on clients, and they are relatives of the client that have come in and passed on messages, and had things to say about what was happening in the room. And those things are very, very interesting, and they're really enlightening. And some clients accept that happens, and some clients become a little unnerved that suddenly, Aunt Rose is walking into the room and having a conversation with us when she died 15 years ago. So it has really opened up my world by exposing and revealing some of my hidden abilities and talents that I use to help other people. And I've always said, and I've always taught in my classes, find what you're good at. Find that gift that you bring to the world. And if you're not using that in the service of others, you're only robbing yourself, and you're robbing the world of some true greatness and some real wisdom. And if we don't live our lives in the service of others by using our natural gifts and talents, we're really doing a disservice to why we're here.
That is profound, Joe. That's really profound. Because if we come with a gift, and we all have come with gifts, but we shut them down, we're
Absolutely.
actually creating a restriction in our bodies, aren't we? Do you suppose that's why the working with Reiki has actually opened up your ability to be a psychic medium, or to be to see things that have gone on in people's lives?
I do, and I was doing that as a child. I just didn't realize that I was doing it. And of course, like a lot of people, when you mention it to your parents, they say, "Oh, well, that's stop making that up," or stop talking to these imaginary friends, and quit doing that because you're just making that up or whatever. And so you kind of just stop doing it. And when I started having these things happening during my Reiki classes, I ran into a local medium in Evansville. And he kind of guided me as far as, this is kind of the way this works, and this is how it goes. Let's go and practice these things. Let's do this. And he helped kind of guide me through how to more effectively focus some of these abilities. And I can't remember which direction I was heading. I had three thoughts all at once come through there. But I believe that my whole life I was doing some of these things and not realizing what it was that I was doing. I worked third shift for 23 years, and I always saw shadow people running, from a car to a tree, or from a tree to a house, or running between trees. Always. I never thought anything about it. It's like, okay, well, there's a shadow that just moved over there. I didn't realize that was anything significant. And when I started really focusing my abilities and doing a lot of research, seeing shadow people, that's a big thing, and not everyone can do it. And I just thought that everybody could see shadows like that. And I just focusing on those abilities and being able to direct them toward a purpose of service, I think is really, really important.
Well, no discussion about this is complete without talking about demons. What are they? Where do they come from?
Well, there's there's a lot of contention about that because there are a number of people that believe that anything that's non-physical has to be a demon. And we even have some paranormal shows on television. I'm not going to name them, but they go out there, and we all know who they are, and we all know the kind of show that it is. And they'll go into some famous haunt somewhere around the world, and they'll say, "Oh, a demon just touched me," or "I just saw a demon," or "I think we recorded a demon voice." Well, let's try to get beyond this idea that if I can't touch it or see it, that it's demonic or evil or sinister or it's out to rip out my soul or some other horse pucky. We need to understand that, yes, where we are is what we think is a physical world. But if you really start diving into quantum physics, there's nothing physical and there's nothing with mass. You know, we can't even figure out why atoms have mass. And yet we're absolutely certain that the couch we're sitting on is 100% real. But when we leave the room, is the couch still real? And so if we have spirit in the room with us, and we have some spirit who has come down, whether it's a crossed loved one or whether it's a being from another dimension, just because it's not physically capable of manufacturing a apparative body does not mean that it's not real. And it also does not mean that it's demonic. Now, as far as what we would refer to as demons, and I only use the word demons when I speak about them because it's the best known word and it's the best known thing. They're simply dark entities. Sometimes the fabric of our world gets torn and some things from other places come in. These things have never had human bodies. And once they're here, they kind of have to survive. And they feed off energy. They feed off the energy of the room. They feed off the energy of people. And, you know, we may consider that really, evil or sinister whenever we go down the hallway and we see a shadow standing there and we get scared. Well, that energy kind of helps feed them and keep them alive here. And I have the ability to go in and make those things go away and seal up the holes that they've left behind. And that's part of one of my gifts. That's what I do whenever I do house investigations. Is I never use any equipment. I don't record anything. I don't set up any monitors or sensors. I walk in and I do a reading of the place. I'm like, okay, here's what's going on. You have residual energy over here. You've got an ant that's trying to connect but can't, and she's not giving the right signals. And you've got a portal in
Joe,
this corner of this closet.
we're going to have to stop. Time flies, and I've so enjoyed working with you. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure.
My pleasure, all mine. So this has been The Science of Magic. Remember, you can always listen to past thought-provoking episodes on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge, comforted with love, and embrace your magic touch.